Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. We're back for another episode with an author, CJ Leede, author of Maeve Fly, which dropped in 2023, the summer of 2023, which is an unbelievable book. It's in our top 10 or top 20, top 15, whatever we put out there for books of the year. It's an unbelievably weird, cool horror slasher book written by CJ. It is well and highly recommended, so please check it out. It's called Maeve Fly. So we discuss Maeve Fly, we discuss her next book called American Rapture, which comes out October of 2024, as well as Star Trek, books in general, the crazy world we live in, and so much more. But before we listen, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. Rate, review, subscribe, all those things over on Spotify, Apple, and all your major podcasting platforms. You can also check us out and follow us on YouTube as well. But this is episode with author CJ Leede talking about her book, Maeve Fly, as well as her upcoming book, American Rapture. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, CJ. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. You know, as I mentioned a little bit off air, I feel like I'm getting a cold. I have a 2.5-year-old, so it's like inevitable. But like, yeah. He just got over his cold like 2 weeks ago, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, if he gets another one, I'm gonna freak out. But hey, you know what? It's that time of year, and I feel like everybody's getting sick anyway. So
yeah, 100%. We're just surviving.
Yes,
we're exactly. Almost there.
It was funny because like I had such anxiety during the pandemic, like the beginning of it. Like if I were to get like a little tickle in my throat, I'm like, okay, hunker down, everybody stay. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna live life. I won't cough on people. I won't, get near people, whatever. But like, I'm just gonna live life. Let's get on this.
It's crazy. I mean, back in the day, like it was kind of like a badge of honor too, right? Like if you were sick and you went to work, it was like, fuck yeah, like look how powerful I am. Like I don't care about a cold or the flu. But now it's like I don't know. It's like I don't know what to do anymore.
No, exactly. And I feel like my boss would be mad at me for coming in, let alone the opposite side of it when we were well, it was only like 4 or 5 years ago too. It wasn't even like decades ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. People were like, yeah, you came to work sick. This is great. And I used to manage bartenders, and bartenders would call in sick, like, oh, I didn't feel good this morning. I'm like, you mean you're hungover? Like you're hungover. Just say it. We work in the industry. Yes, exactly. And it's like 8 o'clock in the morning and they're calling in sick for like a 4 o'clock in the afternoon shift. I'm like, okay, so eat some food, drink some water. You'll be fine. Come on in. But
yeah, we got plenty of time.
So thank you so much for taking some time out. We're going to chat some books here. How did you get into writing? How about that? Let's just start with that. What not forced you, but what made you go into the avenue of writing in general?
So when I was in undergrad, I was hoping and planning to be a career academic, and I was doing medieval studies, and the plan was like take a year off after undergrad, go do some hiking, traveling, whatever, and then like come back to it and kind of like do the academic thing. And my last semester, I had one free elective, and it was a writing class that I ended up taking. And I took the class, it was fun, whatever, and I graduated. And then I heard from that professor again after I graduated, and he was like, I actually sent what you wrote to my agent and editor, and they both want full manuscripts. And I was like, I don't know anything about writing. So anyway, I wrote a book. It was terrible. I wrote it in like 2 months. I didn't know anything. And then life happened, and I ended up applying to grad school a few times. But in the course of writing that very bad book, I was like, holy shit, this is what I want to do with my life. So it took, and then it was like, a lot of years until I actually got a book done, and then like a book in the world.
Yes, exactly. Now you have Maeve Fly out there. Your little baby is out there. People are taking it and loving. I've heard, I literally haven't heard bad things about it, but I also am in a certain group of people that like, obviously they'll like it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like
those people are out there.
I'm sure they are, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, everybody loves it, but I'm like also part of like book groups that have like, of course they're gonna like it. We're all crazy, and that's why, right? I mean,
we love it. There's no other way to be.
Exactly. But yeah, so Maeve Fly dropped this year. To like I said, overall, I think it's a pretty overall positive reviews
Yeah.
on the book. And I did for our website, we did it during Horror Week. We do a Horror Week, which actually I think it's gonna become Horror Month this year, which is kind of cool. But Horror Week on the website, I had recently, or in the past, I should say, talked to Stephen Graham Jones. I've talked
Great.
to Daniel Kraus, and I've talked to
Yeah.
Adam Caesar. And so
Great
in the
crew.
past, most of them we talked their comics that they did, but we also touched on other things. I actually did a beer collaboration with Daniel Kraus for my day job too. So for Whale Fall,
Oh, that was you?
yeah.
That
So
was so cool.
we had fun with that. So yeah, so I contacted them and was like, do you guys be willing, or are you willing to put together a list of books that you would recommend? Like a lot of people want to read your books, but like, what would you recommend to people? And both Adam Caesar and Stephen Graham Jones put Maeve Fly on that list. So that to me was like, okay, now I need to read this book, because I had it on my TBR, but it was like, I'll get to it at some point. You know, I have so much stuff to read, and it forced me to. So I immediately started reading it. Absolutely loved it. And it only lost out to a close second for our top books of the year to Whalefall. But you know,
and you know what? Whalefall was 100% my top book of the year. So like I know we're not here to talk about Whalefall, but holy shit. It was so good. It was so good.
I was like, I don't mind.
Everybody. I
Yes.
told Daniel too. I was like, this was like everyone's Christmas present this year was your book.
Well, that was funny. I love how you say that, because my local comic book store owner said that his favorite book of the year was going to be everybody's Christmas present this year. He's like, yeah. What do you read? He's like, I mostly read Harry Potter novels. Okay, here's this book. And it had nothing to do with Harry Potter style novels. He's just like, I need you to read this book because this is the book you need to read. And Whalefall was his novel for that, because it's like, it can reach so many different people. Like I feel like it's a thriller, it's a horror, it's sci-fi, it's all that stuff.
Life affirming. I mean, it's really like it. I felt it was a very transformative experience reading it.
Which is a different transformative experience than reading Maeve Fly. I think there was but so Maeve, do you want to give anybody who hasn't like heard of Maeve Fly or understand this, a little elevator pitch on what Maeve Fly is?
Yeah, so basically she is a theme park princess by day in Anaheim, California, and a certain ice princess you may or may not have heard of. And then by night she reads like misanthropic literature. She's a barfly. She gets up to various like low level no goods. But then her best friend's brother moves to town and sort of awakens something in her in a time when she's kind of grasping to keep life together anyway. And it gets bloody and it gets gross and it gets weirder. And that's what I think that's pretty much the book. There's a lot of Halloween.
Yes, there is, and that's good because that's horror. I mean, it fits in that category right there. It's definitely, it's funny how you mentioned the Anaheim, California. There's this happiest place on earth. Is that how you put it in the book? It's the happiest place on earth. Is that the?
I think I said the happiest place in the world.
Okay.
Because that is trademarked.
Okay.
And it's unrelated. This is in my book. This is not talking about any real corporation, of course.
No, it isn't. Well, that was kind of funny. There's a bar, a Star Wars bar, right, in California, that is not a Star Wars bar, and they go by what's the name of it? It's Kevin Smith. They always they do their podcast from there. It's on Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood, California.
Scum and Villainy.
Yeah, Scum and Villainy. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, I love that bar. Ago. Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's not amazing. A Star Wars bar. And it's like, it's the same thing I was trying to explain to people about the happiest place in the world was like, it's not what you think it is, but it is, but it isn't, but it is. And that you could mention Snow White and you can mention Cinderella, right? Because they're public domain characters.
IP. Yeah. And Pinocchio.
Yep.
Pocahontas, of course, like those are not, owned by any company. So it's pretty interesting.
But if you read this book, you'll understand, if anybody knows what we're talking about, you'll also understand what character she portrays in this. I feel like people can get an idea of what you're referring to, but you're not referring to, which is fine because I love that like little poke. It makes it, if you had the ability and you had the rights to say the actual place, it would be less fun in my opinion. I feel like this is kind of fun because it's almost like taking a shot at that actual company.
And in case anybody's listening from that
Yeah,
company, which
yeah,
was not my intention, but it
yeah,
really,
yeah.
I have to say, I actually like, I feel pretty neutral about, I've always felt kind of neutral about the park and the movies and
Mhm.
everything. Like, I don't have kids. Like, I just don't, I like it. I just haven't thought too much about it. But I will say, that particular Ice Princess movie, I do sort of unironically love it. And I talk about it a lot in the book because I think something really interesting happened in it, which, if you read Maeve Fly,
You can
it's
find
there.
out.
You can
The
find out
It's
my
funny I mentioned that.
analysis.
That's so I have a 2.5-year-old son, and during the pandemic, we got COVID in the summer of August of 21,
Yeah.
no 22,
When I
August of
got it.
22, we got COVID, and the entire time all we watched was Cars. Like all he wanted to watch was Cars, the movie Cars, like Cars 1, Cars 2, Cars 3, just back to back to back to back. And I said to my wife, I was like, I'm so glad these are the movies that he decided to watch, because every single time we watched it was we picked up something new, some sort of innuendo or some sort of joke that made it was like
Yeah.
I was actually riveted still. And like she'd put on like movie 3, and I'd be like, she's like, why are you still watching this? I'm like, I don't know. There's something about it that really draws me in. I said to her, I'm glad it wasn't that movie, because I don't know if I could have
The
done
song. The
the
song.
song over
Yeah.
and over and over again, because that would have driven me insane. I probably would have been like, no, we're not watching that. It's broken or something along those lines. Uh, but and then reading this
Very
book, it was
fair.
like kind of funny. It was like it came full circle in that sense. But it's strange, it's weird. But I mean, has this been something that you have had to tell the specific Maeve Fly story for a little while? Not maybe you were gonna write a book about it, but is this something that you've had like, I don't know. How did you come up with this, I guess?
It was percolating, I would say, only for it happened really fast. So I wrote two full books before Mayfly, and I
Okay.
could not sell them for like my life. And I was kind of like in a dark moment. I lost some people. I was like getting rejection letters every day for years. And I was just like, fuck it. And for some reason, it was COVID. It was like a weird time. And I just thought, like, someone needs to retell Story of the Eye from a female perspective. And that was, I can't tell you where that came from, but I was like, I became obsessed with this idea. What does that look like? Like, Story of the Eye is something that, it's like people used to talk about it all the time and then they didn't. And I think we were in a moment too where I felt like people were trying to throw out a lot of literature that was written by like straight white men, and I
Mhm.
get it, but also like, what if instead of that, what if we just celebrate what's really amazing about it, and also just know that it's like those works are amazing, like we don't need to like take anything away from them, and maybe we just kind of get to join the party too. And I think that was kind of my hope, is like to keep celebrating these works that I loved, but also just get to see myself in them a little bit. So anyway, became obsessed. Maeve came to me very quickly, and I outlined the book in like 2 days and wrote the whole thing beginning to end with edits in like 4 or 5 months. And it was like one of those weird things that just flew. And I definitely had to like draw the curtains and drink a lot of whiskey at odd hours of the day to write some of the scenes. But it was a blast.
Eh.
It was fun.
It is. Some of the scenes are. Do you have some merch on your website that explains some of the scenes that are in the book? That if anybody has some things on there, that's just kind of funny, because I actually I hybrid read a lot of times. I read audiobooks as well as the
Oh, I
book.
love that.
So
Yeah.
like I'm in the car driving to and from work, or if I'm a designer, so like a graphic designer. So a lot of times if I am like designing a project, I'll throw something in so that because if I'm doing artsy things, I can listen to a book, more than I can. Music channel throws me off. It's weird. I don't know. But like when I'm sitting at home, I'm reading the book and so on and so forth. And I happened into some of these scenes in my car and driving, and I was like looking around to making sure that like I wasn't like parked at a stoplight and someone's like, what is this person listening to?
That's
But
how you know it's a fun one.
yes, exactly. And at the end, it was like it made sense too. It wasn't, I don't know. There was this James Tynion the fourth, as a comic book writer. He has a book out right now called World Tree, and it's about a nudist. Is the main character is a nudist, and so like a lot of the characters have risque poses and stuff like that, but it's like it makes sense to me because obviously the character's nudist. And
Yeah.
on other comic books, you see the comic books having like risque images on the front of the book. You're like, why? it's not about that. This is just so you can
Yeah.
sell comics or whatever. This book, it's the same thing. I felt like it was necessary to show you who Maeve was. And it furthered the story so perfectly that I was like, oh yeah, I could get this. I get behind this. This is great. But yeah, if I
Thank
was reading
you.
the book at home,
Wow.
I feel like I still would be like reading the book at home, and I still probably would have been like, no one else can read this, can they? Can someone see what I'm doing here? But no, it was definitely worth the journey for sure. It's like it's strange. There's things that I wasn't getting in any other books that I was reading that year. And if you look at my top list, there's nothing that's like even similarly close. Plus, I love the fact that it's a strong female lead character. That's to me a huge thing, written by a female. That's the other part, is that there are
Yeah.
some great people out there writing strong female leads, but are written by men, which I always thought is weird sometimes. Not that they can't. I'm just saying that it's
Yeah.
nice hearing it coming from your perspective.
Yeah, I think, I'm very team like I think I hope everybody gets to write and everybody gets to be heard.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I think I also do appreciate if men are writing female main characters, like it is still I always kind of remember those books because it is like it's a beautiful thing to get to see yourself in
Yeah.
even like super debauched, messed up, kinds of literature because it's fun.
And yes, I agree, because I'm also rereading My Heart is a Chainsaw right now,
Oh, so
and
good.
Don't Fear the Reaper, because I'm getting ready
Yeah.
to read the Angel Lake. I have the arc of that, getting ready for that to read that, and so I'm rereading those, and it's like Jay Daniels is also you don't
An
see these
amazing
characters,
character.
and you don't see him in pop culture that often anymore. I get
Yeah.
that often. It's like it feels like you need to pick up a book to actually get these characters, and I wish that we could see them more in TVs and movies and things like that as well, because yes, the stereotypical person who potentially kills people, most of them are men, and that's why you
Yeah.
see this white man
Yeah.
character. But like that doesn't mean we can't tell fictional stories that have the same thing, but with women, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really important to me. I talk about it a lot in the book, but what I was seeing was like I was finding these female characters who were doing monstrous things, but they all had this like victim backstory. Like they all had some traumatic event that was like something done to them, usually by a man. It's kind of like so I almost felt like there was this feeling that, in our culture right now, like we'll give women permission in fiction and in movies or whatever to be monstrous, but only if they were first kind of like made that way by a man or made that way by society or whatever. And it's like, well, I don't know. Patrick Bateman had a pretty good life, and he just was Patrick Bateman. Like, why can't we have a female character like that? And why is that so hard for us to believe? Like there was so much pushback even in getting this book published. Like, won't you give a little backstory? Like, won't you give a little bit? And it's like, why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So that I don't know, it's pretty interesting.
It is, and I love your. I mean, isn't that the quote from Grady Hendrix in the front, apocalyptic Anaheim Psycho,
Yeah.
which is kind of
He's
funny. The
he's
Psycho connection
amazing.
is awesome. Yeah, I was just seeing the quotes on there. It's like there's some heavy hitters on here, including Tori Amos.
Yeah. I got lucky with blurbs.
Yes,
It was fun.
it's pretty cool, and you obviously had this quote from Daniel Krauss in the back. Was it deliriously indecent feminist slasher? And it's this co-author of The Living Dead, which would probably have said Whalefall if this book came
Yeah,
out.
for sure would have. Yeah.
But no, it's a wonderful book. It's strange, like I said, it has that strangeness to it. It's also not like there's like this weird thing where when I read a book and all of a sudden I know there's a supernatural twist in it, like supernatural, like totally unbelievable. This is not even like based in
Yeah.
earth. Like this is weirdly to say it's grounded. Um, which is like I like books
Yeah.
when I'm reading it. I like to escape and read fiction, but I also like fiction that could possibly be real. It adds that horror, like further horror element to me, if that makes any sense.
I'm so glad. It's I think writing a slasher it's a very like singular experience. And so I have like more books in my contract and like we're kind of keeping it rolling with writing. And
Yeah.
I don't have other slasher stories, but we have now come to the place where it looks like I'll probably return to Maeve and her world. And I think she'll be kind of my one slasher
Mm-hmm.
in my canon. I think. We'll see.
Well, I
It's
mean,
kind
that
of
makes sense.
nerdy.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you have more to tell, and there's more to tell in the story, like you said, it's like we just mentioned, My Heart is a Chainsaw. That there, Jay Daniels is a ever telling story in a sense in that, and then
Yeah.
other books that are slashers. I feel like slashers deserve a sequel, if that makes any sense. Like anything that's a slasher anyway is like telling that
Yes.
sequel as part of the story anyway.
I mean, think about Michael Myers,
Yes.
Freddy, Jason. Like we have this like really rich history of like slashers continuing on, and this sort of like the boogeyman never dies kind of like feeling to it. And it's so epic. And I also love that Stephen Graham Jones did that because I think I'm not like, sci-fi and fantasy, they get these like 5-book series all the time. Comic books, of course,
Mm-hmm.
go on
Yeah.
for really long time. And
Yeah.
I think like horror for a while, we've been seeing a lot of standalones, the occasional like sequel, but like, I don't know, Stephen Graham Jones giving us a trilogy here makes me feel like we might be moving into like an interesting moment of horror series, which I
Mm-hmm.
love to see.
And to me, it's like, I don't know, if I feel like we're in the world of trying to intake so much of, so like Marvel Cinematic Universe, having
Yeah.
all those superhero movies, having
Yeah.
TV shows that spin off into other TV shows and things like that. We want this connected world in a sense. And so having more, you also feel like, to me, you'd almost be doing a disservice to the slasher genre by only doing one story with me. But again, that's down the road. You have other things that are coming out before
Yeah.
anything even gets into that part. But the you on your website, your bio, I'm just gonna go on your bio, it's probably not completely recent, but you talk about telling stories about places and things like that.
Yes.
Like this had that in it, but I also cared so much for our characters in your book that I didn't think that I would. And I think that is part of your character building, and it's wonderful, I'll tell you that much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I hope is like I love setting, and I think like we read for human relationships, right?
Mm.
And it's kind of also fun when, and I'm so happy that for you it worked, and then maybe I was able to pull it off, but I think it's great to be able to like connect with a character that maybe this person in real life, you might be like, I fucking hate you.
Yes,
Like
yes,
I don't want to connect with you. But
yes,
it's like it's fiction. It's
yes.
it's on the page. So I'm
And
so
in the name, her name is the name of the book, and there's, so you want to care for the character, and you don't want to immediately, knowing this person isn't the greatest person in the world, that you wouldn't want to immediately have everybody hate that person, because there is the ability to follow and love a book of, or a villain in a book that you like.
yeah,
We always,
totally.
it's possible,
Totally.
but in the same sense, I felt like you still had this moments of like, no, I side with Maeve. That makes sense to me. And I wouldn't handle it that way, but that makes sense to
Yeah.
me. And so, but that's also what makes Maeve the person that Maeve is, and makes me who I am, even though obviously Maeve is not real, unless it's based on a true story. I don't know.
I look, I mean, I can't say, but um,
uh,
you know, it was really important to me that like because there are characters who are like really nihilistic, they're bored with life, they're over
mhm,
everything, and like I didn't want her to be that. I wanted her to have things she loved, things she cared about, things that were like actually vital to her in the world. And I think like that is where we find connection with people, like when you meet somebody who loves something, especially like, you've looking at your room behind you, it's like,
yeah.
when you're part of a fandom,
Mhm.
right? Or whatever it is, like that's how so much of how we form connections. So that was a lot of fun.
I'm sure. And so I'm guessing you enjoyed writing the book. You said you kind of ripped through making it, basically, in a
Yeah.
sense, like you were just on it. Um, what was the experience like when it finally hit shelves and the reviews and things like that were rolling in? Was it a positive experience? Was it oh my God,
Yeah.
I got to start the next one. Now there's pressure on me, or it's like,
It was amazing. So like I'll say my book sold 2 years exactly before it came out.
okay.
So it was an incredibly long ramp up period, like weirdly long. And that was because of COVID backup and all kinds of factors. And by the time I've been working on 2 other books and now, or 3 other books, and one of them now is kind of like we're finishing up. But I think I had a lot of time to process, and I was really lucky. And so the Goodreads reviews start coming in early, and the NetGalley reviews. And at first, I was obsessing over the negative ones and not even looking at the positive ones. And,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of gets to a point where like when I got really emotional was just walking into a bookstore and seeing it on the shelf. And I think for writers, where most of us are readers. And when you grow up a reader, like those bookshelves saved my life as a kid and were my life. And like it was the most magical place in the world, going to the bookstore and just knowing you're going to like enter a new realm and learn so much. And I think like that to me, even now, like events and all that stuff, I like that stuff and I like meeting people, but like really just like knowing that the book is on shelves is like pretty fucking magical and makes it all feel so worth it. 7 years from trying to start writing to like getting a book out, which is actually even fast for this industry, which is insane.
And like I said, I think that the majority, I mean, my wife and I talk about books that we read. We're like, okay, anything that we pick up on a shelf at a store and we go on Goodreads and it's over a 3.75 or whatever, we're like, okay, we're definitely going to, if it looks good, we want it, we're going to read it. And, and that to me is like that's the line to us, if that makes any sense. I mean, obviously we've read things below that, but like, it's just, that's what we decide our line is. And to think that there's 7,000 people right now that have rated your book on Goodreads.
Yeah.
But that's just the people who use Goodreads, and those are the people who actually review things. It's an insane thing. I can even think about, how much that would feel good that many people are reading your book, whether they like it or not. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, I just think like I think my attitude toward writing the whole time has been like, I feel like I'm always going to have more to learn. And I'm just so freaking lucky to be here. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I'm so stoked to be part of this that like, I know, there are a lot of reasons for this, but like writers can get touchy about things, or even like, with the publishing, like if the cover isn't what you want, or my cover's exactly what I want.
Phenomenal.
But,
yeah. This is absolutely
amazing
beautiful.
cover. But if anything kind of like isn't exactly what you want, but like, I don't know. I just feel like, holy shit, like people get to read my book. Like but yeah, oh, by the way, so that she's a painter who did my cover. There was and then there's an artist at the publisher too who kind of made it look like a book. But the painter, Carly Mazder, she's actually doing my next book cover too, which I'm so excited about.
Is this so your paper? This is hardcover's out right now, but is the paperback's coming out in July? Is the same cover, just paperback version of the cover?
You know what? I think so, but we actually haven't. I have not been told yet, but I would imagine, because we're all pretty in love with this cover.
Well, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I see that. I don't understand it. Sometimes it also, the book publishing world is completely different, honestly, than the comic book publishing world in many facets. But one of them is like, this is the cover, period, no matter where it's published and how it's published. Whereas in books, it seems like it's weird. Like I feel like sometimes the UK version is like far superior than what we're getting in the US, and then the opposite goes, and then they go to paperback. You're like, the hardcover was so beautiful. Why'd you go to this cover on the paperback? But a lot of times they both look good. It's just why they decided to go a certain way.
I think it's a lot of factors.
This to me, it might sell your book. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but like, if I saw this on the shelf, I would pick this up before I knew about it for sure.
And we're getting more covers this year too, because it's coming out in more countries. So that'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to see what the French one is completely different. Completely. Awesome. And that's coming out in February. So that'll be fun.
Do you know how many languages it's going to be printed in? Do you know yet so far? Or?
So far, we've got, I think it's France, Germany, and Italy.
Okay.
And that's it so far.
That's still crazy though.
3 other languages. Yeah. And now we're hoping the next book too. I mean, it's just like it keeps rolling. It's fun.
Exactly. It's fun. And you said next book. So it's this book has strange, it's weirdness to me. Like I said, it's coming from someone who's reading it. Now, if someone's writing it, you're probably like, it's just normal. This is what I wanted to write. But you now sets up center stage for American Rapture is coming in October of this year. It's so weird because it takes, like I mentioned, the comic book market versus the book market. You take about a year to almost promote a book in the book market, and you're like still kind of promoting Maeve Fly in the sense that you're also trying to get people to pre-order your next book, which is like a weird thing because like you haven't even lived in this book for a year or just around a year. When did it come out again? July?
June 6th. But I'll tell you what,
6th.
because we sold it so much earlier than it came out, I'm kind of like everybody please read Maeve. Like I'm like, but I'm like ready to like keep it moving and kind of and then I'll return to Maeve after we get a little break.
Well, you get this pre-order. Like, let's talk like a second about American Rapture, but then you'll get this ability to also re-promote Maeve again as the trade or as the paperback comes out, which is pretty cool. And some people are big paperback fans, some people are on a budget, so that makes sense too.
I love a paper. I actually think it feels better to hold a paperback personally.
To hold a paperback, yes, the longevity of it on a shelf. Like if you're gonna collect something, it's something about hardcover does that. But yes, I'm just a big point of if you buy the first one of a series in the hardcover, you must buy the second.
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
I have
You're now that
the Maid. Nina's book, The Maid, in soft cover for the first book and hardcover. They're like inches in separate in size. It's not even like they're like close. It's like literally like the size of the book is so small compared to but that's just me being some sort of OCD thing about having to make sure that things are lining up on the shelf. But that doesn't read any different, people. The words are also the same on the inside.
No, but I understand. And there's there are, everybody does their own dance with books. I like to crack a spine personally. I love a spine crack. So you can't really do it with a hardcover. It's harder.
No. And if you spine crack on an iPad, it's probably not a good thing, right? If you reading digitally, because it is available digitally too. And I can understand that. Like I mentioned, hybrid, there is a cool way of doing that too. I've read physical copies at the time. I'm reading an e-copy as well. And
it's like $2 sometimes.
Yes. So look for those deals. But if you're in a more of a budget, Maeve Fly comes back out again in paperback this summer, which is cool. I'm looking forward to that. But then you have right after that, a couple months later in October, you have American Rapture coming out. And you just announced this a couple weeks ago, which is pretty cool. Exciting for it to come out. It's a different book, obviously. What's it about? Tell us a little bit about
and by the way, this is only my second time talking about it with somebody, so this is very fun for me, so thank you. It's basically a Catholic teenager, very sheltered in Wisconsin, comes into her like beginnings of sexuality at the same time that the world explodes with this, or not that just America explodes with this pandemic that makes people kind of feral with lust. So it sexually propagates, the virus does. So she has to get across the state of Wisconsin to reach her family in this like really like effectively what is like Dante's second circle of hell opened up in the Midwest. So it's lots of roadside America, it's lots of dairy, it's lots of neon, it's lots of, like all the kind of things that all the settings I like, but it's a lot about Catholic guilt, shame, sex, lust, all the things.
All the things that sell a book.
I hope.
No, that's awesome. The fun thing I will say, we mentioned about continuing Maeve's story at some point. I do love that this is. I love how the description you put it out right now. It says from CJ Leede, the deviant mind behind Maeve Fly, and it was like, but it's in your wheelhouse to tell this story, but it's also different than Maeve Fly in the sense that it's not going to be the exact same book, just a different main character. It is some people who have this ability to write a book every year. It's just basically a retelling of the same story over and over again. This is obviously going to be a different story, which is something I'm looking forward to, because I enjoyed your writing and I want to hear a different story, which is pretty cool.
Our hope was to kind of like hit some of the same themes, hit some of the same, like have a lot of that like sort of neon bar Americana carry through, but also like, give a really different main character. And actually the book I'm working on now has a male main character. So, it's like, I do kind of want to like keep it rolling. But by the way, I did not choose to call myself deviant there. That was a surprise to me. And I was thrilled. I was like, thank you, whoever wrote this. I think it was my editor, but
yeah, probably. Yeah. I was like, oh, look at that. If you read Maeve Fly, people are going to understand it. And then if you get to American Rapture, people are going to understand it, sets CJ apart from everybody else out there right now. No, it's October 15th that drops, which is pretty cool. You can pre-order it now at most places, including Amazon. But also check out your local bookstores and things like that. But I've said it a million times on these podcasts. It's like, try your local bookstore. But if you end up it's the easiest and best thing for you to do is buy it on Amazon, just do that, because no matter what, it's a book sale. And that's the biggest thing in my mind. I'm like, yes, local is great. If you can do local, try to do local. But in the end, don't not buy the book because you didn't want to buy it on Amazon. Still buy the
100%.
book.
100%. And also, I think, sorry, that was the hotel phone just rang. We're checking out soon.
Yeah.
But bookshop.org has also been like a great resource for that. Cause then you get to like place the order and not really think about it, but it comes from some local bookstore. But yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Please. Yeah. If you guys can afford to buy a book, it does help writers out a lot.
And also, we've been big proponents of, cause we listen to audiobooks as well here is, Libro FM. If anybody doesn't know about that too, when the book does become available in audiobook format, that Maeve Fly is available in audiobook format, is to buy it on there, because that also supports. They send a kickback to a local bookstore that you choose when you sign up for that too. So it's like buying the book from the bookstore, but in audiobook format, because obviously no one sells audio CDs anymore, do they? Is that even a thing anymore?
What a good question. I don't know. And I will say, like, my next book has a lot to do with libraries too. And like, I'm just stoked if anybody reads it. So
libraries. Libraries are great for that, not that this is going to be in a school library, but just, maybe you're
I mean, you never know. I hope I get banned somewhere. That's
the goal, right? Get out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Banned for not doing anything wrong, just writing a great novel. There you go.
In like Florida or Texas or something.
Yeah, that's easy. I think R.L. Stein's probably banned in Texas. The book, like I said, October 15th, you can get Maeve Fly and in hardcover right now, and I said paperback this July as well, so you can pre-order that as well or buy the hardcover right now. You're a Star Trek fan.
Big time.
Would you ever want to write Star Trek comics?
Oh my God. Yeah.
This is a random question. This is just like we're closing out with this question here. We're big comic book fans, obviously, here. And we've had Star Trek editors for the Star Trek line over at IDW on the podcast. And so I just thought I'd say, hey, that's a cool thing. Comics is, writers, people crossover. I just mentioned 3 people who have written comics and novels. Is that something that would ever interest you? Just writing comics in general? Or is this just you don't have to say yes, by the way. You can say no.
No. Well, so I worked at a comic book store, actually. That was my last job before doing this full time. I love comics, actually. I really do. And there are, of course, like novelizations of Star Trek too. It's like its whole own industry. I think the thing is, like, I get like my heart's like pounding even like you asking that question, because I'm such a big fan and it's such like a comfort world for me. I almost wonder, I think it would be the biggest dream and honor, and at the same time I wonder if maybe I shouldn't involve myself in that way. Maybe I should just be able to be the biggest fan of this for my whole life and just kind of have that remain so pure, because I wouldn't want to fuck it up. I can't fuck up Star Trek for people. Like, what if I did, like, that's egregious.
I know firsthand, by me, but I've talked to people who are like, it's such a difficult thing. Heather Antos is the editor, one of the editors of IDW. She's been on the podcast, and she's talking about the idea, the lore behind these things. And like, if you change the smallest thing or you screw up on the smallest thing, they're villainized for the rest of their lives because they messed with their Star Trek. And it's like, I can understand that. Peeling back that curtain and going in behind the scenes of some of these stuff too also can be fun, but in the same sense comes with pressure. It's telling your own stories like Maeve Fly or American Rapture. It's probably the safer of the 2 bets. But yes, if someone, basically what you're saying is if someone would tap their shoulder on, hey, can you do a one shot? You'd think about it.
I'd think about it for sure. Oh, and it'd be such an honor.
You're not gearing into it, looking forward to it, trying to get into that. It's just, if it happens, it happens.
I'd say if anything, I live in LA and I'm not an actor, but if there was ever like a day player part where like I don't have to do too much and can be in like some elaborate alien makeup or something, that'd be more like how I'd want to like step in a Star Trek world, because then it's like I'm not really on the hook. I get to participate. I get to like probably cry all day from joy. But
that's pretty funny. I can understand that. I can completely see that, and it'd be fun to if they ever do maybe a Maeve Fly Star Trek crossover. I don't know.
Hey, look, I could see Maeve and Kirk, having a gay old time.
Yes, exactly, right. Or how about this? Maeve cosplays as a character from Star Trek, and walks around.
That'd be amazing. Honestly, honestly, I could see her vibing with the Klingon
Yeah.
world pretty hard, you know. Yeah, I see
But
it.
yeah, I had to throw that out there because I knew you're a Star Trek fan, and you know, we would be big fans of a Star Trek comic book written by you. But you know, I keep to the books for
Thank
now.
you. Well,
You know,
yeah.
you're not like you're not busy enough as it is.
Well, I would say never because I said a hard no to a Maeve sequel, and now here we are. So never say never. Things
But
change.
yeah, exactly. Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk Maeve Fly, American Rapture, Star Trek, and everything in between. Yeah, so best of luck. We're so excited to read American Rapture, and we'll be back in touch at some point, probably to come on and talk about that at some point in the future.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope we get to chat more. And if nothing else, I just want to stare at your beautiful comic book and like Funko collection
so
behind
the fun thing of this, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves up there, and they're all signed by guests of the podcast. So that was my goal. So like they're all either I've owned them before or they have sent them to me afterwards. This line here is all signed VHS from people that were in them. Like, so we got like, I don't know, we got Friday the 13th, Never Ending Story, Bible. But yeah, it's fun. I work closely with the people who do the convention in Maine.
Nice.
The comic book convention. So a lot of times I do a lot of their graphics, and they give me autographed stuff for free. So I in trade because I don't want to charge them. But yeah, it's been a long collection, but it's a fun thing. All my books are in my bedroom library area. There's some signed ones in there, but I got to bring some of those in here. I had them. I've got Whale Fall coffee.
Oh, there you go.
There's Whale Fall coffee, and then Whale Fall beer.
That my boyfriend and I saw the Whale Fall beer existed, and we like got online to see if we could get some. We thought that was so cool.
Yeah. It was so limited, and it was we only my brewery only sells it in New England, and so it's hard. It's some states you can ship to, some states you can't. So we were just like we secretly shipped some to Daniel. He said he sent him in the case, but other than that, it was sold. It's one of the fastest selling beers we've had, and I'm hoping to do something in the future. With Daniel or whoever, be kind of fun to do in the future. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on, and you know, safe travels and safe whatever you're doing. But come back and talk American Rapture or just shoot the shit. Doesn't matter to me.
Thank you. I would love that. And thank you so much for plugging both books and reading Maeve and just being the coolest.
Thank you so much.